Hello, I'm John Sargent, and welcome to Argumental, the show where the finest minds in British comedy debate the biggest issues facing mankind. Do we still need a royal family? Is there life after death? And what's best, thongs or panties? Here to argue such hot topics and many more like them are our teams. Please welcome, in the red corner, Captain Marcus Brigstock and special guest, Ed Byrne. And opposing them in the blue corner, Team Captain Rufus Hound and his special guest, Jimmy Carr. OK, let's get going with round one, where I ask the teams to tackle a topic that threatens the very fabric of our society. This week, it's this. Global warming. The ice caps are melting, factories are belching out smoke, and polar bears are getting all sweaty. There's more smog and toxins in the air than in Pete Doherty's lungs. If you believe the boffins, climate change is the biggest threat to mankind since bird flu, and by 2050, the UK will be hotter than a tumble-dried 50-pence piece. But the statement I'd like the teams to argue about is this. Climate change is a good thing. First up, arguing in favour of the proposition, whether he agrees with it or not, it's the red team captain, Marcus Brigstock.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot tell me that you're not excited about climate change, you're not excited about global warming. Ladies and gentlemen, the summer of 2008. What a pissing disaster. Come on, who's not ready for Britain just to warm up a little bit? I think you are, aren't you? You're feeling it? Britain is going to be glorious when it's sunny. We won't need a national anthem anymore. We'll just sing, "This is my island in the sun." That sounded a bit racist. It won't be when it's warmer. For years, ladies and gentlemen, we have known that 4x4 drivers are wankers. Now we have the science to prove it. Without climate change, that science would never have been carried out. Plus, you know, the temperature of the Earth has changed for years. It's always changed. Climate change is normal. Mother Earth, think of her as the mother. She's simply going through the menopause. A hot flush, strange moisture that seems to come out of nowhere. But once this is finished, she'll move into her granny stage and be more kind and play Lego with all of us. When climate change really begins to bite and things warm up, most of continental Europe will be an arid, uninhabitable desert. What's not to like? And if that's not enough to convince you, Liverpool will be underwater. You see, there's a delightful prospect. It's always us, we always get it. Fantastic. At the moment, living in Britain, you are never more than 70 miles from the sea. When climate change begins to bite, the sea will come closer to all of us. And as the obesity time bomb, which is a horrible thing when it eventually goes off, as the obesity time bomb ticks away and people get fatter, we will be less and less able to visit the seaside. Why not continue to eat pies and drive big cars and just command that the sea come to us? That is why climate change is a good thing. I commend you to vote for the red team.
Well done, Marcus. Arguing against climate change, it's Jimmy Carr.
Thank you very much. Cheers. You made some very unkind comments earlier, Marcus, about Liverpool being underwater. If you're watching this in Liverpool, take that television back to wherever you stole it from. No, really. Yeah, we're going to get warmer and it's going to be a bit clammy. It's going to be like a holiday in Centre Parks. Does anyone want that? Speaking of, you know, our tourism industry, thanks to rising sea levels, the whole of the tourist industry around the coast of Britain is going to be cut off. All seaside towns are going to be underwater. That's going to cost our economy nearly £400 a year. El Niño has been a disaster, and anyone that lives in Islington and has eaten there will agree. I think the good news is, I mean, obviously climate change is a very bad thing, but we are going to be fine. If we all pull together, yeah, the middle classes, as you say, if we all pull together, we do some good, we recycle, we can make this right. As long as we get, you know, CO2 emissions halved by 1975. Shit. Well, it's a bad thing. There, that's... Okay. I'm tempted to rest.
Yes?
Yeah, fine. Good point. Well, now,
Thank you, Jimmy. Now, anyone, do you want to chip in with some
I have
arguments?
to say, it's very hard to argue that climate change is a bad thing when you're sitting in a television studio with lights and screens everywhere. Just the carbon footprint of this television show alone.
No, that's not true. This entire studio is powered by Brian Blessed. We have him in an enormous hamster wheel, just bellowing. He's not even in it, just shouting at it. Roar! And it spins round, and that's what's powering all of it.
Of course, a carbon footprint is a metaphor for the mark you leave on the earth as you walk through your lives. I don't have one because I drive everywhere. And it's twice as bad if you're Christian because you've got Jesus traipsing alongside you.
OK, thanks very much. Thank you, chaps. Were two strong arguments, but who made the best case? Now, this is time for our studio audience to decide. So, hold up your red card for Marcus and Ed, and your blue card for Rufus and Jimmy. OK, vote now.
You fucks. You're saying climate change is a good thing? That's what you're saying? En masse,
That's
you're
right.
agreeing.
Bring on massive worldwide death.
You know what really is going on in this audience? It's a room full of middle-class people going, I'm so naughty.
A victory for the Reds. They've convinced the audience that climate change is a good thing. The threat of climate change has been around for decades. In fact, in the 1960s, scientists produced this shocking image of the world's last polar bear on the world's last glacier. Evidence suggests that climate change could have catastrophic effects during our lifetime. Not my lifetime, obviously. I've got 5 years if I'm lucky. I personally think global warming is a myth, like World War II and women's rights.
No, you didn't.
OK, next up, it's the slideshow. One member from each team will again be debating a hot topic, but this time I'll throw in a series of pictures which they've never seen and must incorporate in their argument. Rufus, I'd like you to go first, please, and the issue you'll be supporting is this. Going to the gym is a waste of time and energy. And here's a picture to start you off. Away you go.
Going to the gym is a pursuit much loved by homosexuals, but it's a total waste of time and energy. Of course it is. We've developed over 60,000 years to run away from the things we're being chased by, to hunt, to wrestle, but our modern lives simply don't require that much exercise of us. 60,000 years of becoming in the peak of physical evolved condition, 5 years of YouTube and chunky Kit Kats, and we're all knackered. As this graph shows...
Nice one.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Well done.
When one starts a step aerobics class, one should start with a small box and build up over time until the big red box, as it's known, which gets you to peak fitness, especially if you're coming from Buenos Aires. But that kind of carry-on simply will not cut the mustard. No, it will not, because I think we all know that, you know, what tends to happen is people who aren't naturally fit, whose jobs don't require things of them, go to the gym and then decide that they aren't going to be quite motivated enough to do it themselves. So they go and they get a personal trainer, a man called Raoul, who basically shouts at you for an hour and a half, telling you you're a dickhead because you're not as fit as him. Well, of course we're not as fit as you, Raoul. We don't work in a gym because when we were at school, we learned to read, Raoul. Not that reading necessarily makes you a better human being.
Well done, Rufus. Excellent. Opposing that argument is Ed Byrne. Ed, you're arguing that going to the gym is not a waste of time and energy, and here's your first picture.
Obviously, going to the gym is not a waste of time. I went to the gym for about 6 weeks and I looked like that. I then stopped going to the gym and turned back into this. You see? If only I'd stuck with the gym and kept hold of those white panties. I can count. Oh, I would have to. I don't know how many times I've been to the gym actually this year. But actually, the other thing about going to the gym, and the reason I've started going is because I'm actually having an affair, and the gym's a great excuse for showering in the afternoon. Oh, yes. Speaking of slipping up, I'm worried about that last remark I made about going to the gym and having an affair, because I'm worried that people at home might be, there might have been some guy who started going to the gym and now he's being stared at very, very awkwardly or with great suspicion by his other half. If you have, and you are now being stared by your other half with great suspicion, you can thank me later. Because now when you go to the gym, you have to work out really hard and show some results. Otherwise, your wife's going to think you're sleeping around on her. I've just saved you a fortune. I am your personal trainer. Now... Of course, if you don't go to the gym, you end up living a much longer life. And, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Don't try and hang that one on me. Oh, there we go. That's perfect. That's cool.
Well done, Ed.
There was a fundamental flaw in much of what Ed was saying, which was, if you're going to the gym and your wife thinks you're having an affair, really train hard at the gym so that she knows you're at the gym and not having an affair.
There you
but,
go.
of course, the other option is, if you are having an affair, just whoever you're having the affair with, just bang them really hard.
Are you claiming, Hound, that you can actually gain muscle bulk just by making love?
Marcus,
If you don't believe him, Marcus, ask your wife about it. This is a bad boy for life here.
All right, OK, well done. Time for our studio audience to decide who made the best argument. Remember, red cards for Ed, blue cards for Rufus. Vote now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look at that, a sea of blue.
Right, so it's a clear victory for the blue team. Well done, Rufus and Jimmy.
I didn't like that, thank you.
It might surprise you, but I worked out this morning, that by not going to the gym last year, I saved £350 on fees. Still, LA Fitness's loss is Ginster's gain. Just the other day, someone asked me, John, how did you get that body? And I said, officer, I just opened the boot of my car and there she was. We're going to take a quick break now, but join us in a few minutes when we'll be finding out if Amy Winehouse is a good role model, whether beggars deserve our money, and what's best, the North or the South. Don't go away. Welcome back to Argumental, the show with more shouting and pointing than an EastEnders omnibus. Our next round is called Flip Flop, where we find out how well our teams can argue with themselves. I'll give a player a statement which they must argue for until they hear this sound. And at which point they must perform a U-turn and argue against it. Then flip-flop their argument every time I press the buzzer. Marcus and Jimmy will go head-to-head in this one. OK, Marcus, I'd like you to begin arguing that the North is better than the South.
Of course the North is better than the South. Anyone who has visited the North will be able to tell you what a friendly greeting you get. As soon as you arrive, you walk into any pub, they will sit you down and say, hello, where have you come from, mate? Welcome. I hope you've had a wonderful journey. Can I get you a drink? Why not meet the missus? Here she is. And that is just one of the many reasons why the North is so much better than the South. There's that sense of friendliness, the reaching out that we just never achieve down here in the South. And I think that is one of the reasons why I find the North so ghastly. Everywhere you go, it's, hey, where have you come from? Oh, piss off, I just wanted to visit the place. The South is way better. We stick to ourselves. We know what we are, we know where we're going, and we leave each other alone. That's the basis upon which the South works, or doesn't work, in my view. Because, of course, you know, where would we be without the North and their gritty dramas? You couldn't set the kind of gritty dramas we've seen from the North. Imagine something like The Full Monty. Imagine that set in Woking. It would be a wonderful thing, I tell you. You wouldn't have some homunculus freak who's recently left a steel mill. You'd have a tidy-looking person who's recently done some temping work in a solicitor's, suddenly taking their clothes off, which is altogether more inviting. But the north of England is a wonderful place, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't think we should forget that they have done a great service for us in the south by keeping some distance between us and Scotland. And that's something that the north almost never gets credit for. Oh, thank God for that.
I should declare an interest here. I was born in the south, so I'm not going to make any jokes about the north, mainly because I don't want to deal with all the carrier pigeons of complaint. Northerners get a lot of stick, which they use to knock hoops along in the street because they can't afford a television. Jimmy, it's your turn next, and the subject is this. You should always give money to beggars.
Well, you should, clearly, always give money to beggars. Whenever I see a beggar in the street, I hear Phil Collins singing Another Day in Paradise. And it makes me think, well, who's really the victim here? You shouldn't ever give money to beggars. Whenever I see a beggar in the street, I say to myself, what would Jesus do? He wouldn't have existed. You should give money to beggars because if you give them enough, they will eventually bring you that cup of tea they've been promising. You shouldn't give money to beggars. You should look for a ratified big-issue vendor and don't give them money. That's the best way to do it. You should give money to beggars because they'll spend it on drugs and alcohol. Well, I suppose there'll be less money for me to spend on drugs and alcohol. It's a lose-lose situation. But give them a little bit. Maybe coins. Tell you what, give them coins, but throw them quite hard. So you're sort of teaching them a lesson, and then apologise because you're throwing money at vagrants now. What is your fucking problem? I think I may be homeless at the end of this round. Quite badly. I think my career may be over. The thing about, mortgages are getting more expensive, but you try explaining to a homeless person how lucky they are. I honestly believe that round could drive a man to insanity.
It's genuinely quite... I've got a nosebleed.
Thank you, Jimmy. Now, different countries have different names for hopeless cases publicly begging for money. In America, it's called panhandling. In Scotland, it's cadging. And in England, it's called appearing on Dragon's Den. Right, it's time to find out who flip-flopped the best. And once again, it's the studio audience who decides. So, red for Marcus or blue for Jimmy. Hold up your cards now, please.
Well, I'd like to make a point here, if I may.
Well...
Fuck you. I think I've said my piece.
Looks like a result for the Reds. Hard luck, Jimmy, but well done, Marcus Brigstocke. Now it's time for our celebrity round, and here's the subject of tonight's debate. It's through a hedge backwards, chanteuse Amy Winehouse, the star that soap forgot, and living proof of Aesop's old fable, never choose a tattoo while on heroin. Just recently, they've put a waxwork of Amy in Madame Tussauds. To make it more realistic, they've moved it to the toilet. But the statement I'd like the teams to argue is Amy Winehouse is a good role model. First up, it's Marcus. Now, are you really in support of Amy, Marcus?
I am indeed. She's a friendly lady, John, and I like Amy very, very much. She's a wonderful, wonderful character. The thing about this is, you know, Amy Winehouse, is she a good role model? Well, for who? For you? For me? I'm not sure. But what about a crack addict? My daughter, for example, is 3 years old. She has a small crack problem. That's the school that we sent her to. She needs somebody to look up to. She needs a role model. Look what this lady has achieved, was high on crack and Jack Daniels. It's magnificent. #1 selling albums and concert bookings all over the place. She's fantastic. Plus, Amy Winehouse knows her own crazy mind. Amy Winehouse knows, despite overwhelming evidence that she should attend a rehabilitation course, she was asked the question, do you want to go to rehab? No. No, no, she said. She knows her own mind. There's a confidence there. This lady stood on stage in Glasgow and threatened the entire Glaswegian audience with a man who wasn't even available to fight them. There's a level of confidence we should all aspire to, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a crack addict at the moment. But if I were, it would be Amy Winehouse that I would be looking to for leadership and inspiration. This is what Britain's youth is heading towards, and I'm proud.
Many thanks. And next up is Jimmy Carr arguing that Amy Winehouse is not a good role model. Why not, Jimmy?
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Amy Winehouse is a terrible way for any young person to die. She's drug-addled, she's drunk, sluttish, but that is where the good points end. She looks like a 40-year-old pit pony that's let itself go. She looks like a satanic My Little Pony. She looks like she needs a good bath, and then that bath needs a good clean. Amy Winehouse is so full of drugs, the only way she could visit her husband in prison was to be smuggled up someone else's arse. It's a good thing she's got talent, or she'd be Pete Doherty. But Amy Winehouse remains a pervasive influence in our society. Just look around you. Young girls are getting high on alcohol and drugs and walking around with no knickers on. And is that what we want? Teenage girls drugged up and slutty? Schoolgirls, slut addicts with their tits out walking around Britain? Is that what we want? I'm arguing against myself now. She's a bad influence.
Thanks, Jimmy. OK, any more to add?
I'd put it to you that she's got a tattoo of a pocket on her tit. I'm just going to leave it there. Just going to leave it there and say, is that the kind of country you want to live in?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. That she should have a picture of a tit on her pocket.
Yes.
It's an excellent idea.
Pubs are closing around this country all the time, and all I'm saying is that if most British people used her as a role model, they wouldn't be.
What about the economy of Afghanistan? If she ever gets straight, they're fucked.
Although, in fairness, geopolitically, I don't know. Amy Winehouse going straight is the biggest of Afghanistan's problems. there they go. But how is Amy?
The people I feel sorry for are the badgers that live in her hair.
I don't know, though. I mean, how many women do you know that you can probably take them out for a meal, they won't eat anything because they don't have an appetite, you can take them home, have sex with them, and then floss your teeth with one of their legs?
Is that a euphemism, Ed? I've not done that with a lady, but I look forward to it.
I think it says more about Ed that after having sex, what he's most concerned about is dental hygiene.
Yeah, I think a bit
After
of...
having sex with Amy Winehouse?
Yes.
I think a general hygiene thing is probably...
I think you'd be looking at an all-over Brillo scrub.
I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about Amy Winehouse, but if I was to have a sexual encounter with her, I would cover my genitalia in Sillet Bang.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Time for the audience to decide which team made the most convincing case. It's blue for Jimmy and red for Marcus. Vote now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we've done it. Well, I think, in a sense, how much credit can we take? I think Winehouse has really won that for us.
So, that looks like a triumph for the blue team. They've convinced the studio audience that Amy Winehouse is not a good role model. I should think not either. I lent her a cracked pipe once and never got it back. Well done, Rufus and Jimmy. So, you've just heard one possible definition of a good role model, a drug-addled, tattooed old lush with a boyfriend in prison. Just one more and I've got the full set. So, the scores then at the end of round 4 are... Rufus and Jimmy, the blue team, 2. Marcus and Ed, the red team, also 2. Time now for the quick-fire round and a last chance for both our teams to demonstrate their argumental prowess. I'm going to show them a series of images. All they have to do is suggest an argument to go with them. OK, here we go.
Right, that's clearly an argument for rickety balconies, isn't it?
I think it's an argument for allowing the Queen her lifelong wish of taking part in the 2012 Olympics in the diving.
I think it's an argument for giving Prince Philip more medals that represent targets.
or given that they're on a balcony, I think it's a pretty good argument for just making medals much heavier.
It's an argument against inbreeding, isn't it?
It's an argument for the fact that, by law, the Queen should be forced to make this noise.
OK, let's move on. Your next picture, teams.
I think that's a very clear argument for not allowing anyone to paint your street pink.
Is it an argument that, no matter what the background, a Rottweiler will always look hard?
It's an argument against a physical representation of my first sexual experience. If you threw a sausage up that would pretty much sum it up, I'm afraid to say.
It's an argument against buying the house that's clearly for sale on that street. There is a for sale sign there. You think his neighbours all painted the street pink just as a joke when, as soon as the for sale sign went up and go, let's really ruin his chances of selling the house.
Here's your next picture.
An argument against letting Prince Harry in the jockey's enclosure.
It's an argument for checking your parachute works.
It's an argument for getting some better animals for that zoo.
And here we have a vagrant. I think it's a clear argument for listening. I mean, there's a dress code at Ascot, and if you don't follow it, you will be ejected.
It's an argument for joining Friends of the Earth. Look what happens when you actually fuck the planet. It's quite ugly.
OK, that's it. So for the final time, it's down to our studio audience to decide which team was the most argumental. Red for Marcus and Ed, and blue for Rufus and Jimmy. Vote now.
Oh, I love you!
So, yes. I can tell you that the blue team have won the round, which means this week's winners are the blue team. Well done, Rufus Hound and Jimmy Carr. Commiserations to Marcus Brigstock and Ed Byrne. That's all we've got time for. Good night.
And you can find loads more Argumental goodies and treats on our goodie and treat-filled website, joindave.co.uk. And next tonight, another treat for you, Mock the Week. Or is it a goodie? Ah, who cares?